From the heart of Maine, this is the DuView Podcast.
All right, and welcome to this week's episode of the DuView Podcast. I am your host, Du, a.k.a. Ryan Dumont, and this is a pretty special podcast episode this week because I am joined by my guest this week. Actually, I'm joined by my father, a man known by many names, Tony Dumont, my dad. So thanks for coming on, Dad. I appreciate it. So great, obviously, great to have you on. Maybe one of the first supporters of the podcast. Definitely appreciated there. And so, when I was starting this thing up, it was nice to, have the backing of, your parental unit there. So it always, helps things because if your parents aren't behind you, probably nobody's behind you, right?
Yeah, basically. But any good parent would be behind their kid 100%.
Right. Well, and that's part of the reason I wanted to have you on, because you've been behind me 100% of both you and my mother, got to give everybody credit here, have been behind me 125% of the time. And you can't ask for a better support system, So with that being said, thank you.
You're welcome.
I wouldn't be here today without you. So, you're
That's
known
for sure.
literally, right?
Yeah.
But I just wanted to, have you on to talk about a few different things. You've done a lot of interesting things in your life, been a lot of different places, seen a lot of different things that the average person may not have seen. So you've done a lot of different jobs in your life, and so I know that you've used a lot of your life experience to give me wisdom in my own life. So when you graduated from Coney High School in 1971?
Yep.
1971. So 18-year-old Tony Dumont's out in the street. What was the first thing you did when you got out of high school?
First thing, I worked construction on 95.
Like the highway
The highway from Belgrade exit to Sydney.
Belgrade exit to Sydney. That's what?
Both sides.
Both sides? So
Yeah,
northbound and southbound?
All new drainage pipe, tar, the whole works. It was all new to me. Didn't know what I wanted to do with my life.
And that's part of the process, though. You know what I'm saying here too. It's interesting when you first got out. You didn't know what you wanted to do, but you probably figured out really quickly you didn't want to work road construction for the rest of your life, right?
No, I didn't.
After the road construction, what was next?
Well, I was working construction in the summer, trying to save enough money, and shoe shops or whatever I could get in the wintertime inside so I could go to school. And I ended up financing, paying my way through a broadcasting school down in Boston. And that was what I wanted to do to get into sports broadcasting.
Sports broadcast. I said, anybody that knows you knows you're probably one of the biggest sports fans. We even have, neighbors that are big college sports fans, and they ask my dad, careful with the microphone there.
Yeah.
That they, we have our neighbors who are, big college football fans, and, they'll ask about some obscure team out in the Midwest, and he goes, oh, yeah, so-and-so's on that roster. It's amazing. I've never seen anybody able to do that. So that's definitely one of your skills. So sports broadcasting was the goal, was the dream, I guess, so to speak, at the time. And how did that play out going through broadcasting school? And
broadcasting school was fun. I had a good time. Getting a job afterwards was a whole new ball game. It was like go to Maine, work a bunch of hours, sell airtime, which I hate selling anything for anybody. It's just not my forte. And so I eventually ended up not getting into broadcasting at all.
So your design path, what you thought you really wanted to do, you didn't end up getting into at all.
No.
So where did that leave you? What was the next step on the journey?
Well, I was trying to get into a local union in Boston. A good friend of mine.
Could you quickly, sorry to cut you off there, Pops, but what is a local? For folks that don't know.
For a union?
Yeah.
It's the local union there it covered Massachusetts, Maine, New Hampshire, part of Vermont, Connecticut,
So
Rhode
basically
Island.
your regional...
Our regional where the local has men that works and the shops that are signed with it hire the guys out of that local.
Gotcha.
And we worked all over New England. So
you were trying to get into the union.
Yeah.
Were you successful getting in?
Well, it took 3 years to do it. I had to go every year to take a test, and usually there'd be 300 or 400 guys taking the test, and they would pick 10.
So highly competitive then.
Yeah, and if you knew somebody, then you got in. But the third time around, unbeknownst to me, when I got in for the interview, the guys interviewing me asked me, how's Big Jim? How's it going? Is he doing okay? And I'm just looking at him, perplexed, let's say. Just, I didn't know what to say to him. I just said, he's fine. Well, little did I know he had made a phone call before I went in.
Made a phone call.
Big Jim Henderson made a phone call before I got into the interview.
All right, so this is Mr. Henderson then.
Yes.
John's dad. Yep.
And that was the interview. That was the whole interview. And they took 11 people that year, and I was number 3.
Hey, I mean, you
And that's why. And once I got into the local, that's when you realized that's how things worked. You had to know somebody, and it just eventually.
It worked out,
Yeah,
right? Yeah, and then that's interesting too that it takes that. And I mean, you and I have talked about that quite a bit recently. It's just what is it going to take for somebody who's looking to make the next step in their life, right? What do they need? They need a lot of the time is somebody to reach that hand out, make that phone call, give that person the opportunity, right?
And that's the way it's always been in this country. I don't care where you are or who you are,
and who you think you are.
If your
right?
father or your parents are bigger donors than a kid that deserves a job, that kid of the rich parents or
whomever, right? Yeah.
It's
unfortunate that it is that way, but I mean, I've dealt with that type of stuff in my own life. I know you have. But so anyway, you get into the local, right? And so that's definitely more of an equal playing field once you get in, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So equal footing.
Then your work ethic dictates where you go
merit,
from there.
Right.
Yeah.
And so once you get into the local, so you were an insulator, right? Were you technically asbestos? What was the technical?
We were called the heat and frost insulators and asbestos workers, but we didn't work with asbestos. It was just the name that was on there from
the 30s or 40s.
Yeah. Well, actually, before that,
going back.
The name eventually has changed to heat and frost insulators and allied workers, because when you mention asbestos, everybody freaks out anyway, and we never used it. So
right, yeah, and I mean, like as we all know, it's very dangerous stuff anyway, and you don't want to have to deal with that. And the fact that they even allowed it in building materials in the first place is problematic. I mean, I know that's probably one of the biggest, burdens, so to speak, in that trade. One of the biggest negatives is guys that end up.
It's everything. Everything had asbestos in it. Brake linings. I mean,
for cars.
Yeah. The highest asbestos reading ever taken was in Times Square from brake linings.
Yeah, just from all the cars.
Yeah, from all the cars. And,
really?
Yeah, and that's part of the problem, with everything nowadays anyway, So
right. So yeah, anyway, heat and frost workers, because you guys insulate rather.
Yeah.
Try that again. Insulate huge cooling and heating systems for buildings. What type of any commercial, residential? What did you guys do?
Commercial, industrial.
Yeah.
It was all power plants, all the high rises in Boston, Springfield. I worked all over. I mean, Hartford.
Pennsylvania, New York, too.
Pennsylvania, New York.
And did that come about early on, or was that after you had been in the union for a while that you got to do a lot of your...
It was after, because you had to do a 4.5-year apprenticeship.
Oh, wow. It's 4.5 years. So it's almost like going to college again, really, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but...
And actually, now they have it set up so you can get credits towards
associate's degree or something like that.
Degree.
Oh, that's awesome. And I definitely know that's a great opportunity for a lot of folks. I mean, especially if you don't... Similar for folks that maybe you don't know what you want to do, but you still want to, be productive and do something, right? I mean, it's a good way to make a good amount of money.
You make good money.
Yep.
The thing is, it's just the travel,
right?
And it's just it can be dirty work,
right?
But it pays very well, and when you're sweating, money's good.
When you're sweating, money is good. I think that's going to be the takeaway
Yeah.
quote from this episode. So when you first started in the local, what was your first impression? You know, as going through your apprenticeship, you know, what did you think? You know, about the union, your impression of the people there. You know, what did you think?
Um, well, I sort of was standoffish to a lot of people because I didn't trust a lot of people because you hear tons of stories on
Right,
this guy, that guy, you know, and so I just went with the flow,
right.
you
Just
know.
kept your
Hey,
head down, did your work,
yeah,
did your thing.
go
Yep.
do this, yes sir, no
Nope.
sir, you know that, and you can't get in trouble, and it should be that way in anything you do anyway,
Any job,
anyone
right.
you're working for. So that's and the I mean, eventually, I mean, it started in Woodland, Maine, near Calais. That was my first job. And the three of us that finished 1, 2, 3 when we got our apprenticeship became very good friends. And all three of us are saying, yeah, we're at the top of the list and we're in Woodland, Maine. This is beautiful. So all you could do anyway is go to work, go back to the hotel, go to work, go back to the hotel, you know.
Yep.
So, but that's,
That was the process, at
yeah,
least starting out, and so you
yeah.
ended up in this is me lacking some of my Maine job. Where is Woodland, Maine?
It's
Where's-
right near Calais.
Oh,
If
down
you go
east.
down,
Okay, yeah,
if
yeah,
you go down Route 9,
yeah.
the airline road, take a left instead of a right to go to
Yeah.
Calais, you'll run right into the paper mill.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that was the only show in town, that and a restaurant. So,
Right.
you know. And the other thing was, while you were working, Saturdays you had to go to school.
Right, as during
So
that 4.5
it
years.
didn't,
Yep.
yeah, and it didn't matter where you were, you had to travel to Boston to go to school.
So you would be down east, and
Yeah.
then on Saturday you'd have to trek
Well, Friday night,
yeah, okay,
go
Friday night.
wherever I was staying.
Yep.
And at the time, I was stopping in different places to change or whatever,
Couch surfing, whatever.
and just
Yep.
head to Boston after either early in the morning and then
Right.
come back and do all my schoolwork because you had to
Homework,
learn
stuff like
yeah,
that. Yeah.
engineering, blueprints, all kinds of things you had to learn, different materials, and you had a test every month, and you had to know what you were doing. And,
Right. And if you were messing around, I mean, it would be pretty obvious, you
Yeah.
know. And if you weren't doing your work, they'd
Yeah.
be like, "What the hell?" You know, we're
Yeah.
taking this time to spend on you, to train you
Yeah.
up, to teach you. We expect, you know, some.
Yeah, and I know a few guys who thought they had it made. They ended up getting kicked out because they just weren't showing up. They figured that's it. You
Yeah.
know, we'll just cruise through here because my father does this or
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
You
My
know,
dad. Do you know
know.
who my father
Yeah,
is? Yeah.
exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Jeez.
So
So once you go through your apprenticeship, are you just considered a laborer after that point, or so do they have any? You know,
Oh,
where
yeah.
where do we go? Where after your apprentice, you do your apprentice? Are you just a full-time laborer right out the gate? You know, how
No.
do they?
you're a journeyman insulator, which you've got a license to go just about anywhere.
Similar
know.
to like plumbing and
Yeah,
some of your other
yeah,
trades. Yep.
Yeah. Well, it's not really a license. You're able in your trade to go
Right.
anywhere, and you got all these different locals throughout the whole United States. And if one region doesn't have a lot of work, you try to get a job someplace
So
else,
say
and
if-
that's why I traveled so much
So if
because
things dried up in Boston, you go
Yeah.
elsewhere, right?
and it was slow there for a while. That's why I ended up in New York, Pennsylvania. I'm trying to think where else. Connecticut, Vermont. You know, different places.
All over New England,
Yeah.
all over really the East
Yeah,
Coast.
all
really,
over the
yeah.
East Coast. I didn't have to go much further than that. I was lucky.
Right.
Some guys love traveling and they'd go to Vegas and wherever, you know, part
Well,
of the big
pipeline
party.
works and,
yeah,
you know, a bunch of-
Alaska.
yeah,
That
yeah.
was a big thing that saved a lot of guys. Was the pipeline
Yep.
way back in the day, back in the 70s.
Late 70s and
Yeah.
80s, yeah, the pipelines. So you become a journeyman, and then how about how long, you know, given if you're, you know, a good worker, good manager, I know you ran later on in your career, you ran a lot of jobs. When did you start running jobs? How early did you get into that?
Um, they started, well, right after I turned into a journeyman. I mean, I started doing jobs by myself, and then I'd get one guy, then I'd get two guys, and um, eventually worked up to where I had ran some big jobs, 30, 40, 50 guys, you know. So that's just, you know, the more time you put in and you got to learn how to handle people, and there's some real characters out there. So you got to have thick skin and a
Yeah.
sense of humor.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh my God. I'm sure you do, and it's definitely interesting. Again, if you know people, and if you can work and talk with people and manage people, I mean, it obviously makes that easier. Those that can't definitely have a harder time with it. Or they have to learn it, right? And I mean,
Oh, yeah.
like,
I'd say there's more to it than what people realize. There's all different kinds of materials. You have to know every aspect of that. There's metal work. I have to learn how to lay out and cover up different things. Duct work, piping, boilers. There's all kinds of things that you have to do. So
right, it's not just one thing. It's
Right.
it's an ever evolving list
Right.
of things, and depending on the building, depending on where you're working. I mean, I'm sure that given I have no insulating experience
Yeah.
whatsoever, but I'm sure that the insulation work for a nuclear power plant is completely different
Oh, yeah.
from the insulation for the Hancock Tower.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah. Totally, totally different, and that's all different. Nuclear power plant. We used to say to guys, you got the nuclear shuffle on. Well, in the nuclear power plants, they have to check. The quality control guy would say to you, go this far and wait for me. Well, you might not see him for 2 or 3 hours because he's got to approve what you've done. It might be very simple, and you try to tell the guy, just hang out for 5 minutes. I'll have it all done. No, I got to go check these other guys because there weren't enough.
There weren't enough quality control guys.
Right. So that's nuclear power plant's a whole different ball game. I mean that, I didn't like working in them.
Yep.
I had to because there was no work around. I worked
Right.
in a few of them, but it's just a long day because it's so you can't
Hurry up
work
and
all
wait.
day. Yeah, it's hurry up and wait.
Hurry up and wait.
Yeah.
So working that quick touching point on the nuclear power plants. So how many nuke plants did you work in, and where?
Oh, gosh.
If you can remember.
Seabrook.
Yep.
I'm trying to think of the one in Pennsylvania. Did one in Pennsylvania. I can't remember the name of it right now. Couple up in New York State, up near Syracuse and Ontario, Lake Ontario.
Yep.
Gosh almighty. Gannett up in Rochester. I think it was Rochester. Connecticut. There was one in Connecticut, I do believe. Vermont Yankee, which was down on the New Hampshire-Vermont line. I never worked at Maine Yankee. Basically, I think that's about it. Oh, Peach Bottom was the name of the one in Pennsylvania.
Peach Bottom.
Yeah.
Where's that in
That's
Pennsylvania?
like right on the Maryland border.
Oh, right on the border.
On the
Yep.
Susquehanna River. So that was probably the longest job I was on
Right.
as far as the nuclear power plant. Because if I could get out of there, I usually tried to get out as soon as I could.
Now, you worked in some of these plants in and around 3 Mile Island, right? Or was that
Well, that's near Harrisburg.
right? But I'm saying the event
right.
itself
Oh, yeah.
happening, right?
Well, Peach Bottom itself got shut down by the NRC for a while because people were going in and they were playing computer games in the control room and stuff like
my
that.
God.
And it got out of hand.
You're
I guess.
joking.
No.
Oh.
So, and I don't know the whole story. This
Right.
is what you hear when you got there.
Oh my
And
God.
so the NRC was always crawling around there checking to see what you were doing. I mean, some random person would just come up while you're working and say, what are you doing? If you didn't like your answer, they pulled you
you'd be
off
gone.
that. Oh, yeah.
Right.
So you didn't mess around with nuclear power plants. It's very strict. you know.
Right. Right. Well, it's funny in comparison to some of my friends that work down at the shipyard, and the Navy rep would come around and say to
Yeah.
him, "What are you welding? Metal,
Yeah.
steel?" And the
Yeah.
Navy guy would just shake his head and walk off.
Yeah. You wouldn't get away with that.
No, you wouldn't get away with that in a nuclear power plant.
No.
So I mean, you mentioned before other places that you worked. I know that when we've driven into Boston before, you spent, I'd argue, right, the majority of your time working specifically in Massachusetts and
Yeah.
in the city of even
Yeah.
just within the city of Boston.
Boston, Providence, yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, what buildings did you work on in Boston that, because I know you can basically, you can look at the skyline and kind of point
Oh, yeah.
out like what you've worked on. or worked on previously.
Pick a building.
Just pick one.
Basically,
Just pick
pick a
one.
building.
Yep,
you
driving
know.
on a Route 1, that
Yeah,
one, that
when
one,
you're
that
going
one.
over the Tobin Bridge, you look right, you see the power plants, work there.
Yep.
You look left, there's a power plant on L Street. I work
Work
there.
there.
I mean, you look at the Prudential building. You know, people see the Prudential building, and I can't remember how many floors, there's a black set of windows going up. Each one of those black rings going up is a mechanical room.
Interesting.
So
at night when you see some are lit, some are not,
yeah,
right? That's
well, you just look at the building itself,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, you think it's part of the design, but what it is to separate
to hide the mechanical rooms.
Yeah,
Yeah.
basically. And a lot of the buildings have units on top of them and fences around them so you can't see them, you know. So,
And so that was all during your time between running jobs, journeyman,
yeah,
all that time period.
I ran work in Maine,
Yep.
up in Millinocket. I was in Millinocket for almost
The
3
mills,
years.
yeah.
Yeah, redid all the paper machines in Millinocket at East Millinocket, and they sold those machines to a company in Africa, and they were using the old machines when the new ones that were put in. You know, unfortunately, it's like 10 years later, the mills are shut down because everybody's making more paper cheaper because of the labor costs. You know, not having to pay people like in Africa or stuff like that. It's not that the quality wasn't better. It was just that it cost cheaper.
It all comes down to cost and
That's
bottom
right.
line and putting more money into the owner's pocket, right?
Right. That's all it is. Yeah.
So I know later on in your career with the local, you were able to make the move from a laborer to more of basically an organizer's role.
Yeah.
So when did you do that, and what was that transition like, going from working in the field to being more of, I don't want to say an administrator because that's not all of what you did, but it was more administrative style work,
Well,
in part.
the organizer did is went around and tried to organize non-union labor to join the local, or try to organize a non-union shop
To unionize.
And it was easier to run jobs and handle men and work in the field than it was to do that job, because
Like herding cats some days with the organizer job.
well, it was just people didn't want to talk to you.
Right. You
know,
come over and you say, yeah, hey, I'm with
I'm
the
so
union,
and
blah, blah,
so,
blah.
and I mean, there were some nice people that sit there and talk to you, and they say, "No, we're not interested. We like the way things are." That's fine, but if you ever want to think about it, I didn't like going behind their backs. I like going to the owners and the guys running jobs for the non-union, because I thought it was a better way to go around it. But eventually, I found out that doesn't work. You have to go to the workers first. Of course, a lot of the workers, they would try to take advantage of it. They didn't understand like what it was like to work union, the opportunities they had, the benefits they had, and we had great benefits.
Right.
You know, you're talking pension, annuity,
Health insurance.
good health insurance too, Cadillac plan. And, you know, everyone always said that we made too much money. Well, not really.
God forbid you make a living wage.
I know, we trained our own people.
Yeah.
That was the thing.
It was all in-house.
And there's nothing like working in the state of Massachusetts, because that's union friendly, a lot of it. It's still tough. It's not,
Right.
A lot of people don't like unions, and like the state of Maine, heavens forbid, you know, that you hear it now, people screaming like $15 an hour. Are you out of your mind? I'm not paying that. Come on. You know, how
The
much
price of everything is tripled.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, what else are you going to do?
Yeah.
I mean, people still need to live. You can't just,
Yeah.
starve people out either, right? Or just,
Yeah.
and everything's getting expensive, and it's nice to see that, some of those jobs are still out there. I mean, because frankly, I mean, unions are at some of their lowest, nationally unionization.
Back
right?
to you go to the 60s, and I want to say after World War II, it got up to like 61% of the households in this country were some
Union
type
workers,
of union.
yeah.
But eventually that kept getting whittled down, and I think it's anywhere from 8 to 11%.
I think it's like 11%.
And people think that people are getting mad now. This is what, they're saying, okay, we're going to organize, we're going to unionize. And,
Like the Amazon thing, right? A couple
Right,
months ago. I
right.
mean, I know you and I were watching that pretty closely, and I mean, the tactics that are used by some of
It's
these, like Jeff Bezos,
yeah,
like those types of people, is just disgusting.
yeah,
It's like you can't, expect your workers to piss in bottles in the corner and a bunch,
right.
like this other, like, oh, that didn't happen. Yeah, but it does though.
It does
They have
happen.
documented
Yeah,
incidences of
you
this
can't leave
happening.
your
Yeah,
workplace.
yeah.
You
Oh,
know,
who let
but
you sit down? Right? Like,
yeah, yeah, you can't take a break.
yeah.
You know,
Which is something that you and your I'll say, lack of a better term, your brothers
yeah,
and sisters in
that's a
labor,
perfect term. Yeah,
that your brothers and sisters in labor predating you fought for. I mean, right?
yeah,
I mean, it always goes back to, and I love this story. I mean, I don't love it, but I mean, it gets the point across, right? Everybody says, why unions? Why? And it goes back to the coal mining.
you're right.
It goes right. I mean,
I
goes
told
back
you
to
that
those.
story about there were so many people looking to work the coal mines that if someone got hurt, they dragged him home to his house, threw him on the
Which
porch,
was
and hired
probably
the
owned
next
by
guy.
the mining company
Oh yeah,
anyway.
oh yeah,
Basically you indebted yourself. You
yeah,
became a wage slave or
yeah,
an indebted worker for life to this
yeah.
company, and you lived and died by this company. You went to the company store and bought the company goods.
Oh yeah.
You bought, you could only right, and it was just
Well,
so.
the guy at the Costa Egg Farms was doing that with the Mexicans, and he got caught.
Yep.
And he was pulling those tactics off, and that was in the 90s, 80s, or 90s or
I
something.
mean, Tyson got caught a few years
Yeah,
back doing that in their meat packing plants and
yeah,
their chicken plants with
yeah.
illegal immigrants. Right? It's just
It's not that we make too much money; it's that the owners and people that invest, the private investment
they just
firms,
want that
they
bottom
just
line. They don't
want
care. Yep.
more and more and more, and it's never enough. And that's what it comes down to.
And again, just to preface here, folks, we're not socialists, communists, or
Oh,
anything like that. It's just it's gone on too long. It's gone on, continues to go on too long, that there's not enough for people to fight over, right? And I mean, you just look at the statistics of who holds, what wealth. And I'm not saying we need to redistribute the wealth, right?
no,
We're not
I
saying
know.
that at all. You still need to work for it, right?
Yeah,
It's not just
exactly.
giving something out for free, but there needs to be something out there to work for, right?
Yeah,
There needs to be something some incentive to say, hey, if you work hard, you're going to get this, right? Because at this point, I mean, I know I've talked with you about it. It's like, I can work hard, but there still isn't enough to fight
right,
over with everybody else.
right. We're the hardest working country,
We work more hours than any
more
other
hours
country on
than
earth.
any other country on earth, and it's like,
Why?
why? And, I mean,
Right?
let's
Why?
have a 40-hour week. I mean, it's just never enough. It's just
And I think it's interesting with COVID too, with people working from home and other things. They come to find out, like, people can get just as much work done in
yeah.
4 days as they can get done in 5.
Well, that's been a
You
big
know, and
sticking point for a long time, the 4-day work week. And I mean, if it wasn't for unions, you wouldn't have a 40-hour work week.
right.
You wouldn't have vacations. You wouldn't have holidays.
Child labor would probably
Right.
still be a thing.
Right.
It's just
And everyone thinks that labor unions are a joke, but it's
a
it's
well run a well run union.
right,
Right.
correct.
I mean, when
And
you have
don't-
corruption
and
and
that
poor
nothing hurts-
leadership, right? And
Nothing hurts me more than to see some, and lack of a better term, and I call them scumbags, run a local and make everybody else look bad.
Right.
And all it takes is that one.
I mean, like, look at the union down at Bath.
Yeah.
I mean, right? That you talk about people in this, this state, people hating it. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, people.
No, I know.
right?
said-
I mean,
they said
it doesn't give it a good name.
right. And
It doesn't give it a good name.
I don't know the whole situation down there, but a lot of guys just say that union does nothing for me, and I'm not down there, so I don't
Right?
know.
No, I'm just.
you know?
But you say people have
Yeah.
a bad taste in their mouths.
Yeah.
It's just.
Yeah.
Things add up. Or you look historically, Jimmy Hoffa, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't do what he did and expect people to not retaliate.
Yeah.
You start throwing your weight around, shooting people, killing
Yeah.
people,
Well-
trying to run unions like the mafia, or,
Yeah.
like the mafiosos, right? And it's just, it doesn't
And
work.
supposedly union pension money somewhere helped build Vegas. I mean, you hear some of the stories,
Oh, yeah, it's amazing.
and that.
But the fact of the matter is, getting back to our main point, is that a well-run, above-board organization takes care of its people.
And there's so many laws right now that when you get and unfortunately, you get the Democrats are friendly to unions because it's boots on the ground for them. They back them quite a bit, and then
Well, there's give and take. There's a trade-off.
Yeah, and then when you get the Republicans in office, then they put laws into effect that sort of hinder the unions,
Right to work,
say-
other
and,
things.
and it's just it's a constant fight. You
Well,
know,
it's that constant swing back and forth as any
Yeah.
political issue is,
Right.
right? It doesn't matter if it's labor, the environment, climate change, the debt. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter what it is,
Yeah.
right? One side gets in, they'll change
And
everything around. The other side gets in, and they switch it back.
and the part of the problem is that 51% of most unions are Republican.
Right.
There's so many Republican guys that why should I? Why should that person make as much as me? I'm a better worker. That type of attitude.
It's
really,
selfish.
Yeah, it
And
is.
it doesn't matter if you're a better worker than him. Just do your work and
Do-
worry about your damn self.
That's all it is. Yeah,
You know, it's people have a hard time just leaving things well enough alone. It's like you have a good thing going, your coworkers have a good thing going, just shut up.
people get jealous.
Oh, I know.
You know.
Yeah. God
So-
forbid, again, people don't like collectivism. You know, God
Right.
forbid the majority of people are doing well.
And they say, and then like you mentioned before, socialism.
Wha-
It's like it's so far from that. I mean,
It's not.
it.
I mean,
And
half
they-
these people that claim that haven't even seen
Yeah, it's just
it or haven't been, you know,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous.
and it's a body that works together that is successful.
Right.
And that's with anything, and that's all unions want to do.
Right,
You
by the
know?
people, for the
Yeah.
people, which again, it's giving power to the common man, though, and the elites find that dangerous.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and that's why
The knowledge and the collective and us
that's why
being together.
Carnegie and all those guys, the U.S. Steel.
Oh,
I
they
mean,
brought the Pinkertons in and
yeah,
started just massacring
yeah,
people.
just started massacring people because they didn't want them sticking together. I mean, it was
It gives them too much power.
Yeah.
They
And I mean,
lose.
that's how this country was built.
Oh yeah,
That's what it comes down to. You
Right.
want to talk about patriots? They stuck together.
right. Yeah, and they had to. And I mean, like, we see that through different points in American history, right? The American Revolution, we stuck together.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not going to use the Civil War as an example because we didn't stick together.
Right.
Right. That's an
Well,
example of when people don't stick
Well,
together.
that war's
right?
still going on.
It's
right
still.
now,
Oh yeah, it never
you
ended.
know.
It never ended. But
'Cause
anyway,
I've got guys I worked with from the South who says, "Yeah, next time there's a civil war, we're going to use real guns next time instead of pitchforks and rakes." So
you mean the War of Northern Aggression? Not
Yeah.
but anyway, the fact of the matter is there have been these extreme events in history where we've stuck together and things have worked out. Maybe
Right.
things have actually gotten better for
Yeah.
people.
and it can be
Right.
if they started sticking together.
It's
but
attainable.
there's such a big divide right now.
Oh,
And like in the
huge.
state of Maine, you look at people. This state is very independent,
Mhm.
and that's a lot of people don't want unions because they think they can do it by themselves. And there's going to come a time, and it's happening right now. It's not going to be like that, So you always need help,
right. And
You-
again, when we talk about unionizing, it's not like forcing. Just to preface, it's not forcing people to unionize. It's that if the workers want to, they should have the ability to. Right.
Right.
It's the
Correct.
freedom to choose.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's not like, again, we're not saying everybody needs to be union, but you need to have a good balance of union and non-union. That's the
Yeah.
only way it works. Just like we need to have a good balance of Democrats and Republicans. It's everything is balance.
Yeah.
Everything is balance. And then again, people get greedy and they want to tip the scales.
Yeah, and it's all money now, and it's tipped so far.
Citizens United was the downfall of that.
Yeah. Oh,
That was just
absolutely.
I mean, things were getting worse, but that's just opened things up. I mean, you look at the last couple even just political races we have. I mean, the Ayotte Shaheen race in New Hampshire,
Yeah.
$15 million.
Yeah.
The
They got to
Susan Collins Gideon race up
Right,
here.
that's-
What was that? 20 plus?
Yeah, it was obscene.
It was ignorant.
that money and could go to help people. you
Yeah,
know,
that's
and
millions of dollars that could go to help. I don't care. Pick your program. Veterans.
and
I
why-
don't care. Yeah.
And someone give me a good reason why these billionaires are going up into space right now, spending all that money.
I
It's
Don't
just
have
to
an answer
advance
for
it.
you.
Well, one, it's to advance their pocketbook.
of course.
That's the main reason.
Right. I mean, like, look at COVID, though. I mean, look what COVID, the mass tragedy for the majority of people,
Yeah.
right?
Who made the money?
Jeff Bezos made
Yeah.
stupid amount of money.
Yeah.
He became I think he became a trillionaire.
Yeah.
Because of this year, even after the divorce to his wife and everything, losing money. It's amazing, and eventually it's going to come to a point, and again, I'm not trying to be Mr. Doom and Gloom, but it's going to come to a point where people are just going to say enough's enough.
Yeah.
Or they're going to be so, indebted to the system that they can't.
Yeah.
Right? It's going to have to fall one way or another. right?
Yeah.
And I mean,
Oh,
people
yeah.
can't. I mean, with the price of everything going up, and a second potential wave of COVID coming around,
Oh, yeah.
the
And
Delta
it's
variant.
coming.
It's just things are rough.
Yeah. And people are just going to, whether they like to or not, they're going to have to start sticking together and start.
And that's what I'm for. Like I said, I mean, like I'm pushing the collective thing. Like again, I don't care about the letter in front of your name, content of your character. Martin
It
Luther King
shouldn't.
said it best. Shouldn't matter what you look like. Shouldn't matter if you're purple, green, magenta, or whatever. If are you a good person for the
Yeah.
most part? Again, no one's perfect, but
The
are you?
one thing I did when I was running work is I treated people the way I would want to be treated
You
on
treat
the
them like a
job.
goddamn human being.
And that, you know what? I never had problems with guys on jobs. There was one.
And you worked with a very multicultural Dominican
Oh, yeah.
folks, Puerto Rican folks,
Yeah.
folks from Africa,
Yep.
folks from South America,
I
Central
worked. I had
America,
all
Mexico.
kinds of minorities
Yeah.
working. I mean, we used to encourage, when I was an organizer, set up something in Springfield for the minority population there to get into unions
Right.
because they weren't getting the opportunities. And to this day, I could walk down there, and there's 4 or 5 of them that would come over and pick me up in the air and hug me and everything else because I gave them an opportunity and worked hard.
Amazing. We've
And
come back full circle to opportunity.
Yeah.
You gave them the opportunity, right?
Right.
And that goes with anything. The
Yeah.
opportunity, the equity of opportunity has to be there. And I know I talked with Lucas about that quite a bit on episode 2 and with Kelly about that in episode 5. It's just the equity of opportunity isn't there a lot of the time for our minority brothers and sisters
Yeah.
here in the United States.
Right.
It's just
and like to see what goes on with this voting and how that just drives me up a wall, because uh, an outfit trying to work so hard into making it hard for people to vote. What are they hiding? What is the problem?
why don't you want the people of your country?
Yeah.
Why don't you want your democratic republic? Why don't you want
Right.
the people to actually have power and elect their represented officials
Right.
as they're supposed to, right?
Yeah.
And
And
again, if there's no fraud, there's no nothing, right? Again, things have been checked over
Yeah.
millions of times at this point, folks.
Yeah.
It shouldn't matter, right? Again,
Yeah. So
if it's
it
above
just-
board and it's clean, that's again, what are you hiding? What are you trying to prevent? Again, collectivism,
Yeah.
power to the common man.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody's just got to stick together. You can't say that enough.
No, right. And so, speaking of sticking together, after you retired, you have since obviously retired from
Right.
insulating and organizing and such. You came back to Augusta,
Right.
Maine, hometown, born here, raised here. Spent a large amount of your time on this blue marble here in Augusta,
Right.
Maine. How's the town changed
Um,
from, let's say,
Well, it's not-
71 till now?
well, the biggest thing that's changed, it's not as vibrant as it was.
Do you want to elaborate on that a bit more?
Well, it's just, you had the mills, you had people working, you had, it always, and people downtown. I mean, shopping downtown.
That's coming back, though.
Yeah, it is coming back. I can remember used to go to W.T. Grant's, and when they built the Turnpike Mall where Sears was at one time.
Which isn't
It
even in
was-
business anymore.
Yeah, and it's like, wow, how the heck are we going to get out there to go show? It's like way out on the outskirts of the
town
city. And
at
now
the
it's-
time. Now
yeah.
that's I mean, you still have all those car dealerships and
Right.
margaritas and whatever
Right.
else before you even.
And seeing the political, I have to say something. The people in Augusta City Council have always tried to work to make the city better. It's like Mayor Rollins came up to me up at the soccer fields one day, and we're talking, and he says, we want to try to make Water Street 2 ways. And he says, what do you think? I says, well, I think it's stupid. I says, there's a reason they put it one way. It used to be 2 ways. I says, there just wasn't enough room. And he says, well, we want to try it. I says, Dave, if you're going to try to bring businesses back, at least you guys are trying something.
And actually, the studies that they've done, it's actually worked out very
yeah,
well.
and it's worked out. I still can't take a left when I get onto the bridge because I keep thinking it's one way. I always go around Commercial Street across,
Yeah.
and it's just, and then the little intersection by Key Bank, where you can go up Winthrop Hill. I still go around to that little one-way street because I'm still not used to it.
Right.
But Augusta has it changed for the better? somewhat. You know, I miss the old stores, Huzzy Hardware. I
Some of your
hate,
mom and pop
and,
places,
yeah,
yeah.
and I think it was more friendly. You know, that's why I try to stay away from the big box stores, and that's just
Right.
the nature in me as far as union guy, trying to support the local people.
And
You know,
that's a big thing I'm about with my, I mean, when I started my podcast too, I mean, in my bio on Instagram it literally says shop local.
yeah,
Right? I mean, because literally we are only as good as a community as our
yeah,
small businesses are. And I mean, that's just the fact of the matter. I mean, downtown's transformed between Cushnock and
yeah,
Downtown Diner and some of these really fantastic, fantastic places.
yeah,
And that, yeah, and I'll agree with you. Even just my, much shorter time living in Augusta, I'd say things have definitely. I'd say prior to COVID, and everything like that. Obviously that affects everything.
yeah.
But I still do think this in part that things are definitely trending in the right direction. Right. I
Oh
think
yeah,
that we definitely, and I actually, interestingly enough, we have a mayoral race coming up this year.
right.
We literally are going to decide who is going to be the next mayor. I mean, Mayor
And that,
Rollins is finishing up,
yeah,
and so I mean that's
and that's
going to
always been
change
a
things too.
smooth transition
Yep.
between, and they've been Republicans, Democrats, and
Yeah,
they all got along.
different parties,
Yeah,
it didn't matter because their priority
yeah,
is the city
yeah,
and its residents. I mean, you go from Mayor Cates, to Mayor Stokes to
right,
Mayor Rollins, and I
right,
mean, you can tell that the agenda overlapping with all of them is the city of Augusta and its
right,
people. That's the main priority,
right,
right? It may be as something as putting in a sidewalk or a stop sign or
right.
something, but it's still the priorities: keeping people safe, keeping this,
Yeah,
trying to, maybe it's two ways through downtown or whatever it may be, but it's just making sure that the folks of this town are taken care of, and the town is the best that it or the city rather is the
right,
best that it can be.
right.
So you mentioned, up at the soccer field. So if folks that aren't involved with sports in Augusta, we have these fantastic, all grass, all natural fields with irrigation, everything like that. Out on the Piggery Road, which used to be the poor farm or the pig farm during
Right.
the Depression, but since the Depression, in the development of land and whatever else, they transformed it into these sports complex. So you have a couple softball fields, couple baseball fields, and a handful of soccer fields. You have since what
11 years.
2011 or 2012 have managed
Yeah.
or co-managed the
Well,
the
it's
soccer.
2011.
Yeah.
Um, it's my first year I started getting involved.
Why'd you get involved?
Well, you were starting high school, and I knew everybody up there, and I was out of Augusta for the longest. I just come home weekends.
Right.
And if I would have been here working and living, I probably would have been involved in that day it started, you know?
Right. Yeah. I mean, because for all that time that you were, I mean, even just the 20 something odd year or 15 whatever years it was before you retired. I mean, you were in Boston all week, Monday
Oh,
to
yeah.
Friday, or Monday morning into Friday,
Right,
afternoon, drive home Saturday, Sunday, and then go back to work.
right.
Like, I mean, that's a lot, again, traveling a lot of turnaround, which
Oh, yeah.
affects things, obviously, without question. And
Yeah.
so just want to get back involved with things and whatever else
yeah,
up there.
and it just, you were involved in soccer, and so I was up there and got to meet Dave Hastings for the first time, and it was just him and Steve Roberge, two of them,
Yep. Taking care of everything.
taking care of everything, and I started helping out a little bit, and I was just feeling things out, and then find out that you got all the guys up at Babe Ruth fields that I knew, everyone from way back that are still involved up there. Unfortunately, the volunteerism in this country is down, way down.
Volunteerism, everything,
and
everywhere is way down.
And
Yeah.
that's how those fields were built, because Augusta had, at the time, no interest in sports at all. The high school, yeah, that's fine. But any of the
In terms of citywide
right,
rec.
Little League took care of itself.
Right.
Babe Ruth was run by the National Guard, and a lot of people didn't know that. It was
Interesting.
yeah, and that got started through the National Guard.
No recruiting tactic there at all, right?
I don't know. I don't know how it. I'm sure Gary Burns or someone could tell
Yeah.
you a lot better than I. And because everything was played down at Capitol Park.
Right.
Coney played baseball games
Football
down there.
games.
Babe Ruth played down there on the same field.
Yep.
And then football games in the summer.
Yep.
Coney girls, look, field hockey, I think, was played right where Hannaford's is now in Coney Hill. There used to be a
there used to be a
field
back
there.
Yep.
And the softball field eventually ended up behind the high school. I don't know where they played before that. I'm sure a lot of people could. But eventually things started, because you had Hodgkins and Bucher, the small schools. But when things started changing, then they hired Parks and Rec people. And, the city started getting bigger.
They had to act like a
legitimate
city. Right, not to...
But,
right.
Thank God bless Joe Lynn Scott and Gary Burns and a whole bunch of other people, Gary Sawyer. A bunch of them had the foresight to start
that complex and that organization.
Complex, and that's been, I think, close to 45 years now that's been up there.
Yeah.
And everyone marvels at it.
It's the best. I mean, at least I can only... I mean, I worked on the soccer end of things, still involved in the soccer end of things, and I mean, easily the best grass fields in the state.
And everyone that comes down to play, all the travel teams
from all over the state, even all over New England.
Yeah, they marvel at, this is all volunteer. The first thing out of their mouths is, boy, this city does a good job. The city has
up until this year.
Well, no, even before that, the city helped us out quite a bit, especially at soccer.
Right. Lining and things
lining
like that.
and the fields and stuff. Part of the agreement for the lease of the fields, because they were our biggest benefactor, them and the high school.
Yeah.
I mean, they were leasing out. I mean, how funny is that?
Right. I mean, now you have signs up there, the home of the Coney Rams, the home of the St. Michael's Saints, right? Whomever, right?
Yeah. And we're proud of that. I mean, it's, and I hate, it's almost like, last year I said I'm backing off because I was putting too many hours in up there, not spending enough time for myself. And I turn around now and I look and I see, I'm going, I don't like how they're doing this. Well, Tony, walk away.
Or get more involved again.
Right? Yeah, that's,
And that's a decision, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's like anything in life. Oh, boy. Yeah, well, that's good. I mean, and like I said, I mean, I only hope to see things prosper and build up, right? I'd love to see lights up there for night games. There's always, I mean, I know you and I have had that pipe dream for a few years now, but it's just, it'd be great to see. But before we wrap things up, last episode 6, mentioned my top 10, summer lists for the state. So I was just wondering, Pops, what are a couple of your, favorite places to go in the summer, a couple summer activities? I know summer's a big time for you, so.
Yeah. Golf. Doesn't matter what course.
Yep.
I've played a lot of golf courses in New England. The good thing about being an organizer is because you're dealing with a lot of other unions and other people, and part of your job and some of the work was done on the golf course.
Yeah.
How are we going to plan this? Oh, look, we're invited to this Chamber of Commerce golf tournament. Okay.
We'll figure this out real quick.
So, but Bar Harbor, I can't go there in the summertime, obviously.
Right. I said that in my last episode too, right? It's just like it's a parking lot.
It's a mess. And even I was shocked because I have that timeshare down there, and to go in October and see buses of people still coming in October because the beauty of leaf peeping.
Yeah.
I mean,
right. I mean,
the
that's
foliage
something that's taken off in the recent years too. I mean,
it's gone.
It's just berserk. I mean,
like I've always said. I mean, when I was traveling home and it was 2 lanes.
Yeah.
95 was just 2 lanes, and it used to take forever. And I kept complaining, let's open it up, build it, and let everybody in to spend money. If we're not going to have manufacturing, come in and spend money.
Right. Spend your money, stay a couple of weeks, and then get the hell out.
Yeah, exactly. But now, they're going to have to expand the highway even further.
I mean, we were talking yesterday. I was in Portland, 295 in Portland. Yeah. It's not enough.
No,
it needs to be like literally going into Boston, multiple lanes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just too congested. There are more people on the roads than there were in 1960 or 19 whatever when they built. Or 70 whenever. I mean, like cars go longer, faster, and whatever else. So things are just going to have to modernize for that to continue to.
Well, and the thing I like about Bar Harbor is there's as many trails as that I've hiked there. I haven't even covered half of it.
Yeah.
And I'll be going again this October.
Yep.
And spend a week down there or 3-4 days anyway.
Yep.
And just expand the area. Just there's so many places in Maine you can go to. It's just
Right.
wonderful.
Yeah.
And love skiing, but my back can't take that. I have a real bad hip now, and I can't do that. So, but that was a way of. I mean, you can't stay in the house all winter long.
Right. Well, you used to snowmobile too.
Yeah.
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 We'll get you back out one of these days.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing. Hate to say it, I'm getting older, and
Oh, he admitted it.
I
Uh-oh.
have to buy the Cadillac of snowmobiles to be able to ride cushy instead
Yeah, I guess
of
you couldn't take out the 92 Indy
No,
Trail.
no.
Probably not be able to walk for a
No.
week afterwards.
so. But anyway, that basically, any place in this state.
The whole
I
state's a
find
walking,
it is.
top 10 list, right?
I mean,
yeah.
I don't like to go as far as I consider anything south of Brunswick, Massachusetts, anyway. So it just the less people, the better. I like
Yeah.
going north now, which I spent a lot of when I spent that time in Millinocket. We went. I mean, there's a ton of places that.
You were fishing a lot up there.
Oh yeah,
right?
fishing a lot and hiking, and actually driving up to Island Falls to play. There's a great golf course up
Right.
there.
Is that a
so-
one-way? You can't re-enter the highway, or is that Benedicta that you can do that?
Oh, I can't remember.
It's like you
one
can
of
only
those-
you can't get back north.
yeah.
You have to go south and then back north again.
Right.
It's backwards.
Yeah. They never put another ramp on to continue up.
I wouldn't be
95.
surprised if Uncle Henry had something to do with that.
Oh, probably wouldn't surprise me. So
Well, anyway, Dad, I like that. Again, Maine is our natural wonderland, and we're lucky to be here. And more importantly, I'm lucky to have you on the podcast today. So, again, thanks for coming on, Pops. I appreciate it. I know it was a long walk to the studio here. So, with that being said,
yeah, I gotta empty the dehumidifier now.
you had to come down here anyway,
Yeah.
right? But anyway, folks, thank you for tuning in this week. And Dad, like I said, thanks for coming
You're
on.
welcome.
Definitely appreciate it. Not many folks can say they had their dad on their podcast. So, like I said, I didn't plan it as a cop out or anything like that. I just wanted to tell your story, Pop. So I appreciate it. But anyway, that's going to wrap us up for the week. Thanks, Dad, for coming on again. And we will be back here in 2 weeks with our next episode. So please stay tuned. Good stuff coming up here, guys. More guests, more everything. So I appreciate you guys tuning in this week. Like I said, back in 2 weeks with our next episode. So keep checking us out on social media. If you want to catch up on any of our old episodes, head over to our YouTube page. Everything's archived over there. The DuView podcast. So with that being said, guys, hope everybody's having a great summer so far, and we'll see you back here in another couple weeks. All right. So that being said, guys, have a great week, and we'll see you next time.